This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to the program. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Well, the state of Arkansas has seen hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into the local economies around the state for broadband expansion. It is a big issue in rural Arkansas as well as in urban Arkansas. A new coalition has formed, led by Heartland Forward, the Bentonville-based think and do tank, to try to expand broadband efforts in a more coordinated way. I caught up with Chief Program Officer for Heartland, Angie Cooper, to discuss. For folks living under a rock, what is Heartland Forward and what are you charged with doing through this organization?
Heartland Forward is a public 501c3 that is based in Bentonville, Arkansas, and we call ourselves a policy think and do tank. We have the mission and vision about how do we help change the narrative about the middle of the country and kickstart economic growth. Being based in Arkansas, we're proud to be based here, but we define the Heartland as 20 states. So think everything from North Dakota down to Texas, over to Alabama, up to Michigan and Ohio, and all the states in between. And as a policy think and do tank, we focused on four main pillars: everything from innovation and entrepreneurship, human capital and workforce development, health and wellness, and regional competitiveness. We really try to drive action through our research. And I have the opportunity to lead the do side of the house of our think and do tank. So I work on all of our programmatic and policy efforts. Again, how do we drive our research and put it into action and be a resource for communities? And then what we learn and take back from communities, how do we help influence our research going forward? Because we believe if we're going to improve economic development in the center of the United States, you got to have the data and research behind it, but we will have failed if we've created that data and research and a report and it sits on a shelf and our community leaders and our state leaders don't actually put it into action. We're real excited today to be talking about one of our initiatives called Connecting the Heartland to High-Speed Internet, which is a program that we care deeply about and have been fortunate to work with many great leaders across the state on how we close the digital divide.
Well, let's talk about that. It's called the Arkansas Connectivity Coalition is what you're doing. It's a broadband coalition to expand access and implementation of broadband, particularly in rural parts of Arkansas, which is most of the state. What are you going to be doing that's not already being done by private industry, by legislators, the governor, state agencies, and that whole policy area right there? What's the gap that you guys are filling?
So the Arkansas Connectivity Coalition is made up of like-minded community leaders, nonprofits, industry leaders that have, we've kind of looked across in different parts of the state and said, hey, we're all doing a lot around connectivity and how do we advance? We're all talking to state and local government, but what if we came together? And I always say the magic happens when you bring the right people around the table. So the coalition is doing first and foremost just that. Come together. We started talking about how can we truly be impactful and closing the digital divide here in Arkansas. So that's going to take first working with the governor's office and the broadband office. As a coalition, we're really excited to be welcoming the new broadband director that will be starting in just a couple of weeks. Having strong leadership at the state level is really important, and we appreciate the support of the governor's office and the administration to lead that. So the coalition will, start working with the new broadband director to connect him with various members of community leaders across the state. We also need to ensure from a legislative perspective, not just that, they're approving the funds that will be coming down from the federal level, but that we're also modernizing our policies along the way to ensure that, we have, from a digital standpoint, we have the telehealth policies, that we have the education policies that will truly help close the digital divide as we put more infrastructure in the ground. And then the coalition, as launch, we announced the Arkansas Accelerate program, and it's in partnership with Benton Institute. And what we're doing is we're starting with 6 communities, And we're sitting down with them of about 14 weeks and saying, okay, let's build that plan of how you're going to use these federal infrastructure dollars, and who around the table from your community needs to be part of that. And we kicked off with our communities last week. And while they all have varying needs, it's really exciting to see what we can do as a coalition. We're just extra hands trying to make a difference.
So Glenn Howey's that new broadband director that's coming to the state of Arkansas. He's coming up from Louisiana. I'm going to be a little skeptical if he's an LSU fan, so we're going to have to, wait and see him out on that one there. So
he'll have to call the Hogs pretty soon.
Get him to call the Hogs.
I guarantee you, yeah.
We'll welcome him with open arms there. So one of the inaugural pilots that you guys are going to use to focus on with your coalition involves, I think, one of the counties in South Central Arkansas, Cleveland County. Keogh, which is a little bit in central Arkansas, but it is a rural community. And then you got Elaine, Hughes, and West Memphis over on the east side of the state there. Give me an example of, say, in Elaine, what do you think you could do to transform that community with broadband?
Yeah, what's great about the program Accelerate Arkansas and Heartland Forward has engaged in 2 other states to date with this specific program we've run in Illinois and in Ohio is we do really want to test and work in all different sizes of communities. So Elaine is very different than West Memphis, but there's a lot of communities in the state of Arkansas that are like Elaine. So how do we find the specifics? Because this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. If it was a one-size-fits-all, we would not be talking about the digital divide. So the first thing we ask, and the Elaine community is in the process of doing this, is who are those 12 to 15 individuals that need to be around the table? So that's your nonprofits, that's your industry, who's your provider, or who would you like to start thinking about provider options in the community? Who are the elected officials? Who are just the community leaders that care deeply about this? And as we sat down with the group last week, we started to cultivate those conversations and really focus on how do we get to that last mile to the household? How do we think about the digital skills that are needed in the community? And digital skills, that's real. That is not an urban, or a rural issue. We all need to continue updating ourselves on the technology. And then how do we just get the word out to the community to make this easy and accessible, and to ensure that if we get infrastructure in the ground, that it's affordable, so our families, communities, and residents adopt it.
So you're hitting a nail on the head. That was my next question here. There is a lot of federal money that's going to go, that has been coming to the state of Arkansas, has been going into a lot of these communities. There is more money to come in terms of broadband infrastructure investment. But how do you, and this may not be your problem to solve, but I'm putting it on your plate today, Angie. How do you make broadband affordable in a community like Elaine? There has to be a price point that makes it acceptable, or else it's going to fail.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. It has to be affordable. We got to have the highest speeds, right? We can't start sharing, and some communities get one speed or one technology and another gets a different set of things. So that's why the collaboration, and specifically within our coalition, we have folks that are, with the electric co-ops to the university to community organizations that are working directly on the ground, rolling up their sleeves and doing the work. But one thing that we have launched at Heartland Forward that will continue through the Arkansas Connectivity Coalition is around the FCC's program, the Affordable Connectivity Program. It is for eligible families. You have the opportunity to receive $30 subsidy for internet service, as well as a one-time cost for a subsidy for purchasing an in-home device. It is, and this is formerly the FCC's Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. One of the things we did initially in Arkansas is, as the FCC was rolling this out, they were rolling it out all online. How ironic is that you're rolling out a program on an online platform for people that aren't connected online? So what Heartland Forward did, and the continued work that we'll do through the coalition, is make sure that information gets in the hands of the people that need it most. So they can get those additional services through the ACP program. So we ran radio ads, we put out flyers, we trained over 500 librarians, because across the state of Arkansas, libraries are still kind of that central focus and network and communities, and finding really in a place like Elaine or West Memphis, what's the local community that people trust and they're going to go to for information. So that's one example of kind of the affordability piece. Another is we just got to keep talking to our providers and saying, you're right, federal dollars, it's billions. Everyone's going to get a piece of this. And so how do we ensure more companies and providers are coming on board and saying, we're going to make sure not only we have the best speeds, but also people can afford it. You know, about 20 companies stood up with the president a month or so ago saying that $30 is their low cost service. We just need more people to join those 20 companies.